Streets and Scholars, Alex Alonso and FG, here to bring you guys another banger. And I'm here with the Eastside General. What it do? What it do,
What's
man?
going on? What's going on with you, homie? How you doing today?
Oh man, everything's good, man. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm good, man. Just taking it easy, man. You know, the sun's shining, and shit, I'm off today, so shit, it's all good.
Oh, you probably about to jump on that hog today, huh? Am I right or wrong?
But you know what, a little later on, man, my daughter got a powder puff football game. I don't know if you know what that is and shit, but I think the seniors, they play a little flag football game. You know, my daughter and them gonna play in that a little later, so we gonna go up to the high school and check that out, man. And just enjoy some family time first. But tonight, definitely, no doubt about it, I'm gonna be on that thing.
No, I ain't never heard of a powder puff. Is that like flag football?
Yeah, it's like flag football, co-ed, they get out there and have a little fun, man.
Oh, okay. No, I ain't even up on that, but I did hear that flag football is about to be in the Olympics or something. I don't know.
Damn, I didn't hear that one, but shit, I wouldn't be surprised, man.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's tap in with a couple of things, man. Do you remember that? You remember that sheriff deputy from Clayton County, Georgia, just south of Atlanta, the home of Waka Flocka Flame, Victor
No
Hill.
doubt, no doubt. Victor Hill, yeah.
It looked like Victor Hill is on his way to a U.S. penitentiary, man, and he was sentenced to 18 months, which is really not a big issue, I guess. What do you think?
No doubt. He over there at Forest City. You know what I mean? I'm knowing he at the camp over there at Forest City. They got a medium, a low, and a camp. You know what I mean? So I'm sure he went straight to the camp, nonviolent. Ex law enforcement. He went straight to the camp. But he got that 18 months. Off that 18 months, he still should pull 13, 14 months to be technical. But ain't no telling what's gonna happen, being that this dude is ex law enforcement. They may pull some strings and get him out a little early.
But look what it says here. I just looked him up on the BOP website. It says Forest City Low FCI.
Well,
So
it's two things that can happen. Most of the times, when you go to these facilities, they send you to the low first, then they walk you over to the camp. You know what I mean? You may stay at the low a day or two. You may not stay no time, but that one evening, and then get walked over to the camp. And sometimes they'll say that you at the USP or you at the low when you actually at the camp. Sometimes they don't advertise that you at the camp. So it could be both situations. But I'm almost certain he went straight to the camp.
okay, so camp ain't really much of a, I guess, a difficult prison time, or can it?
I mean, no, but it's where you want to be. To be honest with you, is where you want to do your time, man. But even if he did go to the low, I mean, you know what I mean. At the same time, it's a low level facility. It's where you're gonna catch a lot of dudes. The money laundering and city officials and things of that nature. If for some reason they can't go to the camp, I mean, don't get me wrong. You can have camp points and still have something on your jacket that won't let you go over there. You know what I mean? You could, have something in your file that won't let you make it over there to the camp. But at the same time, you know, um, even the low level institutions, man. I mean, so it's a walk in the park. Plus he law enforcement, man. He know how to handle himself around people, man. Ain't no smoke, really no smoke over there. But I always say that in any facility anywhere around the nation, man, you can get got if somebody wants you. If somebody at that facility that you did wrong, and they want to reach out and touch you, it ain't nothing from stopping them from reaching out and touching you. You feel me?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You know what I just realized about the federal prison system, which I never realized before, is that you could actually turn yourself into the actual prison, whereas in state prison, the county takes you and delivers you to the prison, but you could deliver yourself to the federal prison you're about to do your time in.
Oh, no doubt. I've seen plenty homies do it. You know what I mean? They get a sentence, like say if they have a situation where they was able to get bail, you know what I mean? A lot of people don't believe that the feds give you bail, but they do. It's just not a cash bond. Most of the time it's an equity bond, in case somebody, your parents or grandparents, somebody have enough equity and property, they could put up that equity to secure your bond in federal prison. Everybody don't have that action. So that's why a lot of times you don't hear people getting federal bonds. But when you do, when you are sentenced, most of the time you're not taken into custody. A lot of times, if you was granted a bond, they gon' you're going to have to report to to the prison itself. You know, meaning your girlfriend, your moms, or somebody, they're gonna drive you straight to the prison, and you're gonna get out and walk up to it and take yourself to prison. Or what a lot of people don't know also is they got what they call furloughs. You know, sometimes when inmates going from prison to prison, they'll get a furlough, meaning they'll give them a bus ticket from one prison to the next. You got so many hours to get to that prison the next day or however long it take. If you coming from Pennsylvania to California, it may take you 2 days on the bus, may take you more, you know, and you're going to have that 2 or 3 days in order to get to California. You know what I mean? And what a lot of homies going to do, you know what I mean? I shouldn't be telling the secrets, but what a lot of homies going to do is get that bus ticket, Alex, and jump on the plane. You know what I mean? And go to their family house, you know, chill for a day and then go turn themselves into the prison, you know. But at the same time, the BOP knows what's going on, you know, but those things are intact. People just don't know about them, you know.
Well, I can't believe that Victor Hill actually took his case to trial last year, and he was found guilty on 6 of 7 federal abuse charges for ordering inmates to be held in restraint chairs for hours, and now he's about to be in prison with those inmates that he abused. So
No
something
doubt.
could happen to him, right?
Yeah, no doubt. That's why I said if he did something wrong to one of them inmates, and depending on if you know, it's always these factors, Alex. You know, everybody in prison want to go home. You know, everybody in prison. You know, a lot of them got family. A lot of them got kids that they trying to get home to. You know what I mean? Some of them may say, "Yeah, this dude did me wrong," but is it risk me busting this dude upside his head, getting a little more time? You know, to be away from my family, you know, for this dude. You know, that's always the factor. But then you also got that one dude who just don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? And he goes, you know, oh, that's dude. And, you know, you in here like me now. And he going to take it to you. You know what I mean? Dude already smaller in stature. Not mean he don't know how to defend himself a little bit, but that don't mean he, you know, it's going to stop you from getting his ass whooped either. Because in there, he's an inmate. You know what I mean? You know, they not looking at you like you a cop. You an inmate, bro. So he definitely can get it.
All right, let me play this clip of the local news talking about him turning himself in.
Happening today, former Clayton County Sheriff Victor Hill is reporting to federal prison to begin serving his 18-month sentence. Hill posted a video on Facebook this morning that shows him boarding a private plane. The caption simply says, "Strength and honor." A judge sentenced Hill back in March after a jury found him guilty on 6 federal abuse charges. Investigators say he ordered inmates to be held in restraint chairs for hours at a time. Hill's attorneys are in the process of appealing his conviction.
Hey, he needs to get out of here with that appeal, huh?
Yeah. Nah, he need to go on up out of here with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And go and do that little time they gave him. They gave him the least he can get. You know what I mean? But he still wanna, you know, try to appeal. And by the time your appeal go through, man, that sentence will be finished, bro.
Yeah, I was reading that he could even get he can get released after 6 months if for good behavior. But what's the deal with the private jet to the prison? Does the BOP pay for that?
I mean, a private jet? No, I ain't heard of a private jet. Now, I've been on Con Air before a couple times, but I wasn't no private jet. You know what I mean? And so I don't know if that's what they call in Con Air or if they really sent him in the private jet. I have no idea. I believe she may be talking about Con Air, you know, calling it a private jet, you know.
Oh, okay. It looked like a nice little jet though that he was about to hop on.
Yeah, I that was something totally different, but I don't know how that worked out, but that's wild. They still showing him privilege after the shit he did. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
look.
definitely a private jet. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with that one.
Yeah, man. I wonder who's picking up the tab on that because I know he ain't paying for that. I wonder if no, he's a former deputy, so they're not going to pay for that. So I can only imagine the federal Bureau of Prisons would pay for that. But that's crazy if they're going to let him pull up in luxury like that.
No doubt. Now, did he get fired? He did get fired, or
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure he had to. Yeah, once he was convicted, he had to be fired, right? Or even
yeah,
before.
yeah, he's former. He's a former
Okay.
deputy, so I don't think he's got any access to. But you know what? Some of these former deputies, they still got their pensions. They still get certain privileges, even though they're terminated. It's not like a complete severance of the job. You know, you still get some of the benefits, even though you're not on the job anymore.
Well, the thing about it, he ain't gonna get the benefits of not getting his ass whooped when he get to prison because he's not a cop anymore. You know what I mean? So if somebody want to holler at him, they definitely gonna reach out and touch him. You know, that's for sure.
All righty, man. There we go. That's Victor Hill about to go do his time in Forest City. What state is that in again?
That's Arkansas.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
Arkansas.
that's down in Arkansas.
How'd you hear about Forest City? Is it a known spot?
I mean, you know, when you in the BOP, man, you're going to hear about dudes been all over the BOP. You're going to hear about every institution that's out there, and some you never even heard of knew existed. So, you know, especially when you pull into that FDC, Oklahoma, man, you know, it's a transfer center. Crazy thing about FDC, Oklahoma, man, is when you land on the tarmac on the plane and you onboard the plane, you onboard right into the prison, you know. But it's dudes coming from everywhere across the nation. So you're going to find people coming from every city, every state, every institution. And that's how you hear about them. So I had heard of Forest City, you know, and down there in Arkansas. But me personally, I would never want to do no time down in Arkansas. It definitely wouldn't want to be nowhere that I would want to go.
But it's not too far from Georgia where he's from, so maybe
Right,
that's
right.
cool.
It's not far at all. You know, they probably got him close to, probably at least wanted to get him out of Georgia just based on the people that he arrested, I'm sure. You know, I'm almost 100% sure that's why they did that. They may have even went in and did the check, you know, especially if he had to lower the count, or you got to be at either one to make sure that maybe his past, some of his past victims is not there. So they probably did the due diligence and all that. So him running into somebody that's going, you know, put the hammer down on him for something he did to them, probably slim to none, Alex. You feel me?
Man, well, I don't wish any harm on this deputy, but you know what some of these deputies do by abusing inmates. I mean, I wouldn't lose any sleep if something did happen to him. I'm
No
keeping it
doubt.
real.
Shit, yeah, I was finna say, shit. I mean, some of these dudes really be deserving to get what they dished out, though. You know, because he was in a position of power, man. When you a sheriff deputy, man, it's hard to, you know, get these dudes. You know what I mean? You know, you had at least you had a couple COs in the BOP, homie, and give you a heads up. You know what I mean? To give you a fade. You know, but not them sheriffs. You know, they gonna run you every time. You know, from the LA County jail, and probably, you know, to all of them, you know, they gonna whoop your ass. So, like you said, if he got it, something happened to this dude, somebody bust him in his eye, but bust his lip, you know, I wouldn't feel sorry for the dude at all.
Yeah, I actually remember Reggie Wright Jr. He actually turned himself into Atwater, and that was a camp. He turned himself to the camp part. Now I understand there's two parts. It's the camp, and I guess is it the medium or the low for
They got a
Atwater?
USP over there at Atwater.
Okay,
Yeah, they
across
got a
right
USP.
across the street, well, down the block, they
Yeah,
got the
yeah,
U.
yeah.
So Reggie Wright turned himself in, and he's a former cop, and he didn't have any problems in there. He said it was cool, it was all right. So maybe Victorville ain't really
Yeah.
to worry about.
Well, shit, I had probably more problems than Reggie Wright was gonna have up at Atwater, man. I'll never forget, man. When I first started driving trucks and shit, Alex, and you know, I used to run up to the Bay and things of that nature. North Cali, run some loads, man. So I had a back load coming, and they said, "Listen, man, we need you to go to the federal prison in Atwater and pick up a load." You know what I mean? At this
So
time, man,
this
I'm on.
is this is after you've been released from prison, right?
This
You
after I've
doing
been released from prison, but I'm on federal paper. You know what I mean? I was like, man, I can't run that load, man. Well, I didn't even want to tell him. You know what I mean? So so I told my supervisor, I'm like, man, I can't run that load. He like, look, man, just get in there and get out. You know what I mean? And man, I pulled up in that motherfucker, went up in there. My whole thing about it is I didn't know I was gonna have to be actually dealing with the COs in order to get this load. And I know COs in the BOP, man, they move from institution to institution, Alex. And I was just praying that I didn't see one of these COs that I just came home from dealing with, you know what I mean? And I seen the homie, you know, and he jumped, he's FG, and I gave him that look like, don't do it, homie, don't do it. But I got that load and got on, man.
That's crazy, because what if
Yeah,
one of them
yeah.
COs? What if one of them COs would have recognized you doing the load? I guess it could have happened two ways. He could have said, taking you into custody, you ain't supposed to be here, or he could have been like, I'm gonna give you a pass, man. I see you doing your thing. Good luck out there, right?
Yeah, you know, I look at it two ways, bro. You know, some of them ain't always assholes. Some of them seeing I'm working a job. You know what I mean? They couldn't have took me into custody or nothing like that. The worst they could have did was call my PO. You know what I mean? And, you know, PO would have made a decision based on what was going on. You know what I mean? And I would have just let her, you know what I mean? You know me, I would have tried to talk my way up out of it. But I definitely, you know, was on pins and needles at that motherfucker for sure.
How crazy is it that you get a job to do delivery to a federal prison? You wasn't expecting that, I'm assuming.
No, not at all. Because I had never even heard of doing no shit like that. But at what people don't understand is that most prisons, a lot of prisons have what they call industrial workers. So they have like at Lompoc, they made street signs. Like the stop signs, the highway signs. They made those signs at Lompoc. When I was there, called Unicor. And the jobs at Unicor pay a lot better. I know GM was trying to get a Unicor there, but they got voted out. When I was at Victorville, they had Unicor where they used to send the Humvees back from overseas, and Victorville they refurbished the Humvees and sent them back to Iraq and Afghanistan at that time. So at Atwater at this time, what they did was they had like a computer chips. What they did was refurbish computers and things of that nature. So actually, I went and got a load of old computer parts, loaded it up, and I was going to take it to a facility to dump it, drop it off, and so that's what they did over there. So a lot of these prisons, man, have a lot of trucks coming in, based on different reasons, not to mention the trucks that got to bring the food, the waters, all the stuff that need to be ran inside of a prison. So trucks run in and out of prisons all the time. I just never thought I would be one of them. Not to mention so close to where I had just left, and I knew I was gonna run into a CO, man. And like you said, they could have played it anyway, call my PO or talk shit or just say, hey man, keep doing your job, man. You know what I mean? So, but that was wild. Speaking of Atwater, but yeah, this sheriff's man, he gonna go up there, he do his little time, and he gonna get on home,
Yeah, man, he'll probably get out in that 6 months. He probably ain't trying to mess around and get more time. He probably gonna do every program. Now, if he was sentenced to 18 months and he could get out in 6 by doing certain programs, can you break that down? What does that mean he has to do in order to get out in 6 instead of the 18?
Never heard of it. You know what I mean? Once you get past a year and a day, you gonna do. I mean, you can get, say if they give you the year and a day, that give you you only get so much time per year, and it's not a lot. So with 18 months, man, it ain't no way he should be able to do, still, even if he got the 65% instead of the 85%, 65% of 18 months is still more than 6 months. So that's some bullshit. They talk about him being good behavior, you know what I mean, and get out in 6 months. That's I ain't heard of that one, man, just to be honest with you.
Well, according to the trial attorney in this article, it basically says that he may serve only 6 of his 18-month sentence if he gets credit for good behavior and takes parts in programs. That's coming from the attorney that prosecuted him.
Well, the only program I knew that got you significant time off was the drug program that people took. A lot of people, homies, went in there and said they used drugs in order to get the RDAP. And the RDAP was a program that got you a year off your sentence. But nah, I don't know how dude gonna pull that one off, man. I don't care what they say. I haven't heard of that. I don't know nobody got 18 months and went home in 6. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Reggie Wright got the same sentence. He got the 18 months, but he did almost a whole year, or maybe just slightly more than a year.
Yeah, no doubt.
Before
That's
he was
my no
released.
doubt. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this dude gonna work this one, but they may work it for him. Like I say, maybe some favors involved, maybe, no telling, but that's some bullshit according to what he's supposed to do off an 18-month federal sentence.
All right, man. Let's move on to Ja Morant, man. And before we talk about Ja Morant, I just want to let everybody know we had already talked about Victor Hill, the deputy that's in prison now, on a previous episode. So if you're not tapped into Streets and Scholars, make sure you're following us on all the podcast platforms. We're on Spotify, iHeart, Google, Apple, and let's move on to Ja Morant. And let me start off with this video because initially, the first thing I was wondering why would one of his friends record him and post it? But it turns out it was actually a live video, and Ja Morant, who just got in trouble in the NBA for pulling out a gun on this live video, it looks to be all kind of spontaneous. So I don't blame the guy that's on live. And let me just pull it up right here. I don't really blame the guy on live anymore. I used to. I used to be like, dang, dude, why would you put your boy out there like that? But they're on a live and they're doing their thing. And I'll just play it real quick. It's real short, 45 seconds. And right there is you see him with the strap, holding the strap up to his head, right? And then if I continue to play it, the dude that's recording realizes, oh, this guy just pulled the strap out. Let me not show it. Okay, let me it's pausing right here. And then he puts the camera down because he realizes, oh shoot, my boy just pulled a gun out on live. So I don't blame the camera person anymore. I just want to get that out the way because a lot of people are like, damn, why would somebody put him out there like that? But it seems to be a complete accident on the camera person's fault.
No doubt, definitely. Well, it fully lies on Ja Morant, homie. You know what I mean? You know, for one, anytime a camera around and you got a heat in the car, you know what I mean? Why would you even think about touching it? You in your position. You know, he's already been in trouble with the NBA, you know what I mean, for, having a gun in the club or things of that nature, and dude, you go back and you do it again, you know what I mean? You knew dude was recording, even if you didn't know it was live or any of that, why would you still be doing the foolishness that you're doing, being you in the situation that you're in the situation? The situation is that dude, you in a position where people dream of being in, and you need to be fully aware of how you acting and how you're responding to the bullshit. And that he's not doing that, Alex.
Well, the main answer that I would say is that he's 23 years old. And when you're 23, you kind of do dumb stuff, right? FG, come on, let's take me back to when you was 23, man.
Man, 23, hard top, 62 Chevy, you know what I mean? Pistol in that motherfucker every day, you know what I mean? Nah, don't get me wrong, you know what I mean? I could totally go back to them days and realize the dumb shit I did, but I also wasn't in his position. One thing about me is I always understood the position a motherfucker is in, and I've never been in his position to be able to not have to do that. Say had, my circumstances wouldn't have, happened like they happened, and I would have, went on to college like I had signed up to do and maybe went on to the NFL, you're going to know at certain times, that some of this shit, homie, is leave that shit in the hood. We worked hard to get up out the hood, and here you go trying everything to put yourself back in it. That's a whole different thing. They take classes on this shit. They got people that with his talent pull him to the side and tell him, hey bro, you got to let some of the bullshit go. You got to let some of the homies go. You got to let some of that shit leave some of that shit behind you, and it's clearly that's not what he's doing, so he finding himself not just in trouble with the commissioner but with other people as well, by his actions.
Yeah, he had just got in trouble pulling a gun out at a club a few months earlier, but this is his most recent statement. And what he said was, I know I've disappointed a lot of people who have supported me. This is a journey, and I recognize there is more work to do. My words may not mean much right now, but I take full accountability for my actions. I'm committed to continuing to work on myself. And I just want to let everybody know that in Memphis, Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee, it's legal having a gun in the car. It's perfectly legal what he did. Just so in California, forget about it. you're going to jail. No, right off the rip. But it's not illegal what he did, but it's certainly irresponsible.
No doubt. And like I said, I told a story a while back about, when I was in Memphis and my folks got pulled over. They had an AR in the car and a 45 or something like that. Police pulled them over, ran the numbers. They was clean, let them go. So it wasn't illegal. You know what I mean? It wasn't nothing that he can go to jail for. It's nothing's probably not something he should be prosecuted for. But at the end of the day, he have to understand what the people who paying him, what their code is, their code of conduct. You know, they want him to act a certain way. They want him to be a certain way. Bro, we trying to put $100 million in your pocket at some point, and this is how you act. And, you know, you got sponsorships with Nike and other big companies, bro. You know, to me, it seemed like, see, and this where I get pissed off at. Bro, you got an opportunity to go make 100 mil, you know, and all you got to do is play the role for, even if you is really a hood nigga, say if you really was a hood dude, you know what I mean? A gangster, you know, bro, in this position, you got to go play by the rules, man. Go do what them people ask you to do. Go run up that 100 million or two, you know what I mean? And once you secure in your pockets and you retire and all that, and you want to go back and do some dumb shit, you could do, you know, but at the same time, you can go make a lot of money for your family, you know, build some schools or some programs in your neighborhood if that's what you want to do. But at the same time, you messing it up, you fucking it up before you even get there. You know what I mean? People, the NBA was trying to get behind you, you know, Nike and other big companies trying to get behind you to get all this money in your pocket, you know, and you doing the dumb shit. That let me know it's two things, homie. You're not a real gangster and you're not a real hustler. You know what I mean? Because a real hustler gonna, you know, go by the rules. They not asking you to do nothing crazy. They asking you to just follow the code of conduct. So, you know, that let me know you ain't no real hustler because you got the opportunity to go run up the money, you know, and then at the same time, you ain't a real gangster, homie, because the real gangsters, homie, is trying to be where you at right now, you know. So he in a situation where, man, he need to sit his ass down and reevaluate his life, man, and let the bullshit go and go play ball because the boy is real talented.
Yeah, man. Well, you know, the last time he got caught a few months ago, they say he went to some sort of counseling. I don't think they gave him the proper counseling or the proper attention that he needed because he's obviously he's lashing out. He's asking for attention. Something's going on with this guy psychologically and mentally for him to be acting like this. And I just don't want to throw him under the bus. I think he's actually going through some pain right now. We just don't know what it is. And it's certainly counseling is something that would definitely address those issues. But I want to play a clip here from ESPN's Malika Andrews. She had a chance to tap in with the NBA commissioner during the draft, not the actual draft, but the lottery for the draft. It turns out the San Antonio Spurs got the number one pick, and right after that was determined, Miss Andrews got to asking Mr. Silver here about Ja Morant. Take a listen.
But let's start here because this is the second time in about 2 months that Ja Morant, the star of the Memphis Grizzlies, has been seen on social media brandishing a firearm. And before he was reinstated after his suspension last time, he flew to New York. He sat down. He met with you. What did you say to him about how much more severe it would be if he did this again?
Well, we talked directly about the consequences first before we got to a subsequent potential to have done something wrong. We were very focused on the misconduct that was in front of us at the time. And frankly, most of our conversation was about how incredibly serious the first incident was of waving, you know, a firearm on social media. And again, you know, and the consequences there, an 8-game suspension was pretty serious and something that he, at least to me, seemed to take incredibly seriously in that time. And we spoke for a long time about not just the consequences that could have on his career, but the safety issues around it. Could have injured, maimed, killed himself, someone else with an act like that. And also the acknowledgement that, as you said, he's a star. I mean, he has an incredibly huge following. Yeah. And that my concern, and I thought he shared with me, that millions, if not tens of millions of kids globally would see him as having done something that was celebrating in a way. You know, that act of using a firearm in that fashion. And so I at least was left with the sense that he was taking this incredibly seriously. So honestly, I was shocked when I saw this weekend that video. Now, we're in the process of investigating it, and we'll figure out exactly what happened to the best we can then. The video's a bit grainy and all that, but I'm assuming the worst, but we'll figure out, exactly what happened.
All right, that's ESPN Adam Silver talking with Malika Andrews, and she sounds like she wants this dude punished severely. Just the way she started that questioning off, like this is the second time he's done this. She sounded like she want to press a line on Ja Morant.
Man, she tried to press a line on everybody. I'm her least favorite fan, Alex. You know what I mean? It killed me just to watch that. Just real fast before we go on and finish real fast. I seen somebody in the comments say that this was pre-recorded. And that's why we not paying attention to the any of the comments. Slick, I'm definitely gonna come on the show, bro, and it's definitely not pre-recorded, man. We live as can be. Me and Alex Alonso, this street TV. So yeah, back to Ja Morant, man. No, I don't like her at all. I don't even know why they give her so much. I guess she got some pull over there, man, because but she's like that with everybody. You know what I mean? And she shoots you down and try to be negative and try to, throw these sly remarks all the time. You know what I mean? And she don't want to see him come back. You know what I mean? If I ain't mistaken, she, I think she and the white guy. So when it comes to the black dude, she quick to throw him under the bus, man. But I do think he'll recover from this, no matter what kind of suspension they give him this time. Like we keep reiterating, he didn't do nothing illegal, but he did do something against the NBA code of conduct. You feel me? And but he's way too talented. He gonna lose out on millions of dollars though, man, with them endorsements and things of that nature. People are going to drop him from ads and stuff like that. But I don't see why he don't get this. Like you say, he may need some counseling. It may be some more mental issues. I don't know the dude personally, but at the same time, he made it this far. He should know that this is definitely not cool.
Well, the NBA don't play, and if they want him out the league, he could be out the league, and it don't matter how talented he is. I remember back in the day, man, I used to watch this dude in the 90s. His name was Chris Jackson, but he changed his name to Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. He was in the NBA, but he decided he was doing what a homeboy from the San Francisco 49ers was doing, but he was doing this in the NBA. He wasn't saluting the flag.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he was being disrespectful, quote unquote disrespectful, according to the NBA. And
right.
I believe they ran Mahmoud Abdul Rauf out of the NBA just because they didn't like him. And he was talented.
But they will do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. They definitely will do it. Ja Morant, though, is young enough to where he can go sit out a whole season and come back, and be something. And the thing about it is it may take that. It may take them, saying, no, you suspend it for the rest of the year for you to get the understanding. And while he's sitting back chilling with his homies and he counting up that $100 million and endorsements and pay that he lost, because he already lost $600,000 just from the last suspension, and that $600,000 didn't mean nothing to you, bro. I mean, like you say, it could be some more issues lying there, and then maybe he feel he got enough in his pocket right now to live for the rest of his life. But at the same time, to throw it all away just to hang out with some dudes and to flash a gun, I mean, I don't think that's nowhere near worth it, So I'm wondering where his parents are, wondering where his brothers are, wondering where his uncles is to tell him if he want to be a hood motherfucker, where the big homies at, slapping you up for even doing some shit like that. You know what I mean? So, but like you say, he 23, man. But even when I was 23, Alex, we didn't do. I mean, I guess I was seasoned in the hood at 23, but you just didn't do goofy shit like, we didn't have Instagram though either. But that I never been a take a picture with the gun type of dude, ever, and so somebody needs to sit down and talk to him. If he has some real big homies, they'll go over there and put some hands on him and slap him upside his head, tell him don't even bring your ass around here. You know what I mean? And that's how it should be when you got a real big homie.
Well, you mentioned his family. He actually has a great relationship with his father, his family. His dad actually taught him the game in the backyard. His pops actually used to play ball back in the day, and he decided, I'm gonna just teach my son the game. So he has an excellent relationship with his family. I believe he's from South Carolina. I don't know if he's hood though. I don't know if he's hood. I'm sure they got hoods in South Carolina, even though it's the country.
Right,
they got country hoods. But I want to play this clip from. There's a couple of interesting clips. I can't believe my boy Brick Baby actually addressed this issue. Brick Baby from here in LA. He from Rolling 60s, and he actually had some interesting things to say. Kind of reiterated some of the stuff you just said, FG. Let me play this clip of Brick Baby, and this is an interview that Brick Baby gave on another platform called Cam Capone News. Let me see if let me get this up real quickly. Oh, wait up. That wasn't the clip that I wanted to play. I'll get right back to that in a second. But both Brick Baby and Keyshawn Johnson, two born and bred LA dudes. Brick Baby representing the actual hood, where he's saying this is not what you want to do. And Keyshawn Johnson representing a hood he grew up with. He grew up around all of that. He grew up in the Fruittown Brims, right across the street from USC. I think someone like Ja Morant needs to tap in with Keyshawn Johnson, so Keyshawn Johnson can put him on game, because Keyshawn Johnson went through all the same stuff. Again, there was no social media back then. And imagine if social media existed in the 90s and in the early 2000s, a lot of other athletes would have gotten in trouble that we never knew about. So, this social media also got these people delirious. It's like a drug, and it's got them wanting to seek out attention. But I think he definitely needs to tap in with Keyshawn Johnson, because he needs a mentor. He needs like a father figure. He needs someone that's been through, that's from the hood, but has a successful professional sporting career.
Yeah, I feel you, but at the same time, Ja Morant know that he one of the best in the NBA right now. He know he's at the top of the food chain when it comes to the NBA. He knows he's very, very talented at the same time. So can somebody like Keyshawn even get to him, just based on, you know what I mean? Some of these young dudes look at the old dudes like, man, I don't want to hear from the old washed up motherfuckers that's trying to tell me about how to live my life. That's how these young dudes attitudes. That's why I stay in the gym. You know what I mean? Because these young dudes try to get out of line. I'm going to let them know, that young shit don't think I'm too old, for me to holler at you. You know what I mean? But at the same time, man, that be their mindset. Now he may have more respect for Brick Baby than he do for Keyshawn Johnson. You know what I mean? Because Keyshawn, Brick Baby, got on him, but he did it in a playful manner. Like he said, I don't got nothing against the dude, but at the same time, homie, if you gonna bang the hood or you gonna claim the hood, run some money over here. You know what I mean? Run the Crip some money. You know what I mean? So now you done put yourself in a whole different spotlight, because Brick Baby might not be the same dude to feel like that. Now the dudes from where you from might feel like that. Now, other reputable Crip dudes might feel like that. You know what I mean? So now everywhere you go, any city you go in to try to hang out, especially when you come to LA, you're going to have to pay a paycheck to come hang out in LA now. You feel me? So what Big Brick Baby was basically saying, man, is why is you putting yourself in that position when you don't have to? You know what I mean? So, but at the same time, man, Ja Morant, he 23, like you said, you one of the best in the NBA, around the NBA at the moment. Maybe you can't handle the fame like that. Maybe, you just can't handle it, so, but the NBA gonna sit him down for a minute. They gonna teach him a lesson. This shit is all over the internet, all over everything. Him throwing up a Crip song. Come on, man. It's not after he can go back and do the homework, or when they start, when they got on Paul Pierce's helmet, when they started really recognizing that these dudes were throwing up gang signs. At first they wasn't catching on. Paul Pierce used to throw up the P. After he shoot a 3-pointer, they didn't catch on at first. You know what I mean? So once they caught on, they start putting a handle on that, like, don't bring that shit to the NBA, And at the same time, for Ja Morant, with all the fans that he got, for all the kids that's looking up to him, and you really, really, really not that hood, bro. Let that shit go, man, and play ball, man.
Now, do you think it's fair to judge how hood or how hood he's not, because he might want to prove himself to all the naysayers such as you? So I kind of think that approach is not really the approach we want to reel him back in, to get him back on track, because it might have a reverse impact, especially since he's 23 years old. He might want to say, oh man, they saying I ain't hood. These people don't know I'm so hood, because the same thing happened to an NBA player named Javaris Crittenden. He used to play for the Lakers. This dude wasn't hood at all, but because he was from the hood, ghetto in Atlanta, he wanted to act hood. He came to LA. He started hanging with the Mansfield Gangster Crips. and this dude ended up doing a shooting and killing somebody, and he's doing 20 years in prison. And this guy was playing with the Lakers, man. So I don't want to push this dude to the edge. I don't want to push him over. I want a real bro back in.
No, look, it's been many NBA players that did the same thing, but it's also been some NBA players and NFL players that was real gangsters before they hit the league. That really had put in some work for the hood before they hit the league. They just happened to didn't get caught. You know what I mean? So regardless how hood he is or hood he not, I'm not gonna give him the respect or nothing like that, Alex, to say I'm not going to push him one way or another. He a grown ass man. He going to go the way he want to go. I don't think it's nothing if he let somebody say, push him in one direction or another, then he a bigger fool than I think he is. You know what I mean? Because if G say you ain't hood like that, and I don't mean that you ain't from the hood. I ain't mean that you ain't did nothing work. I'm saying real hood motherfuckers that made it to his position ain't acting like that. You know what I mean? Not especially when you on one of the biggest stages in the world, bro. You ain't acting like that. You know what I mean? And if you want to be so hood, go run up them few $100 million and then donate it back to your hood. Make sure your homies straight there. Make sure your homies got houses, and make sure your homies, you open businesses for them to work if you that hood. You know what I mean? So I ain't gonna give you no pass like that. You know what I mean? I'm telling him, him being in his position, one of the best in NBA, potentially can go make hundreds of millions, and you want to act tough, over that, then I don't really have no pass for you. I don't have no sympathy for you at all. My thing about it is I do understand because you young, but at the same time, bro, let this time right here, now I'm gonna go back to say, just like this, I caught a gun case back in the day, 20-something years old. The judge told me, he said, listen, man, me and Frank DeGiacomo, we got the judge on a legal search and seizure. The judge say, listen, man, this what I'm going to do. It was a legal search and seizure. I'm going to dismiss this case. He say, but if you riding around with 45s in the car with a bullet in the chamber, he said, you'll be back. And I said, no, sir, I won't. 30 days later, Alex, I was right back in that man courtroom with another pistol case. You know what I mean? So I get what's going on. My situation was different from his. I'm rolling around Linwood, Compton every day on gold Dayton's. You know what I mean? It was different for me. You know what I mean? Put me in his same position at that age, bro. I'm going to make sure the hood gets some bread. You know what I mean? I'm going to make sure I open some businesses in the hood. Even if I just gave my homies some money and they family some money, you know what I mean? That's what I would do if I wanted to represent the hood or push the hood. I would just, 100 million. I'm gonna put a meal or two, when you got 100 million contract, of course you don't get $100 million, but I'm just saying, I'm put a meal or two in the hood if that's what I really feel about the hood. I'm not gonna make a fool of myself on the biggest stage, one of the biggest stages in the world, and fuck it all off because you look like a fool. You don't look like no gangster, so that's all, that what I feel about him. But I like the dude as far as his skills, the boy be balling, and I like his swag. I ain't knocking none of that, but just if you can knock off the gang shit, or it ain't even the gang thing. It's more or less like the guns that's getting you in trouble, just keeping you from getting your money, tone that down, bro, and go get your bread, man. You're hell of a dude in the NBA.
Yeah, man, go get that money, man. Let me play this brick. I queued up the Brick Baby clip. Let me play it right quick.
I'm 6'0", run it in. You know what's up. He ain't fucking with the gangland like that. You throwing them ends up, that's gonna cost you, nigga. That's what I was gonna say anyway. That's gonna cost you anyway. What you want to do? Pay the Crips for the rest of your life? Because that's gonna cost you. You get what I'm saying? Like, you ain't never been to the 60s, nigga. You keep throwing up ends and all that shit when you and throwing up C's and all that, nigga. You ain't even from this shit. You ain't even from this shit, no way, shape, or form. Like, when you get put on in Memphis, dead homies. Like, come on, let's be real, cuz. Like, start being real with yourself. You a basketball player, cuz. You want to come step into this field, we can show you a whole lot about this shit. Matter of fact, set up a meeting for me and Ja Morant since he want to be a Crip. So I bet you he don't never show up. And it's on some friendly shit. I don't got no beef with you, Ja. You like the face of like the NBA. You like the new face of the NBA, and you with this You claim you a part of the culture, man. Be the positive side of the culture like you been. You don't got no felonies. You didn't grow up fucking shit up and all that. You might have smoked some weed or whatever the case is, but come pull up on me. Look, we gonna hang out this summer on the off season. Since you wanna be with this, dead homies, I bet you don't be picking up my phone and all that, because our regular life, our regular everyday life, you gonna be scared of, and then you gonna be thinking that we putting you in the middle of that, but we just coming to kick it and all that. Like, you gonna see all this aggression and you gonna see how we really act, like, you know what I'm saying? But this is just us being normal, no problems or nothing. You're not gonna wanna be a part of that, so stop acting like that's what you wanna be a part of. When them fades get issued out, when the ops come slide, do you really wanna be a part of this? With 200 million? Let me know something. Like, nigga, stop throwing that shit up. Like, nigga, don't f with you.
All right, we'll stop it right there. But I think Brick Baby was spitting some real shit right there, man.
Nah, no doubt. He was keeping it real with him, man. You know, so he getting it from both sides, man. You getting it from Keyshawn, you getting it from Brick Baby, homie. You getting it from Alex and FG. You know, tone it down, homie. You know, not to saying he gonna even hear none of what any of us saying. But my point is, man, you know, tone it down, go get your bread, stop doing foolish shit you ain't even got to do. You know, it could be different when somebody pushed up on you and you had to pull your thing out to protect yourself and you got caught on camera. That's something different. You know what I mean? Come on, man, you rolling around in the car, chilling in the country somewhere, man, and you ain't have to do that. But, you know, I think he gonna be all right. You know, he too talented. You know, like I say, he's young enough, man. He can go sit down a year, man, you know, and come back and still, you know, as long as he stay in shape and do his shit, he that talented, man. So, you know, I'm rooting for the dude. You know, I'm hoping the NBA, because it wasn't illegal what he did. You know what I mean? Yeah, he might have broke some conduct rules, but at the same time, he didn't do nothing illegal. He wasn't charged with a crime. You know what I mean? He's not doing court, none of that shit. The only court he's doing is the NBA's court. You know, so I'm hoping that they you know, show him some love and some understanding. You know what I mean? And let him keep balling.
Well, if they suspended him 8 games for that last violation, and then he does it again 2 months later, man, I think this is going to be probably like a half a season or a whole month suspension. It's not going to be just a couple of games like it was the first time. And each game is a check. When you take his salary, right? You take his salary, you divide it by 81 games. That's how much he's getting paid a game. And then that's how much money he's going to lose. So maybe he'll start feeling it in the wallet a little bit.
No doubt. Because if he lost 600 for the 8 games that he was suspended last time, you know, they hit him with much more than that. You talking about losing a couple million. You know, maybe he may get an understanding of what's really going on. It's bigger than just, you know, you missing some games. You know, you missing some money out your pocket that's, like I say, can go in your bank account for your future, you know, hopes and dreams and kids and grandkids and parents and all these things. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping he get it together. What Keyshawn had to say about it.
Yeah, let's listen to Keyshawn, man. And this Keyshawn is a guy that we went to the same high school. We also went to the same college, and we lived. We're neighbors in terms of hoods. You know, I lived in a particular hood, and his hood was immediately south of where I live. So we have a lot of commonalities. And here we go.
I just saw a video that some gang members here in Los Angeles don't appreciate Ja's behavior.
Let me pause it real quick. He talking about with Brick Baby.
Yeah.
So it's a trip. Keyshawn Johnson's actually tapped into some of these YouTube videos.
Hell yeah.
All right, let me continue.
You see what I'm saying? So now you got them involved. Now they talking on a video stream live about his behavior and disrespect and throwing up the gang signs, and he ain't got nothing to do with that gang. He don't even know where that's at. Trust me. I mean, I'm not gonna speak on the gang who it is, but he doesn't know them people one bit. Trust me, I'm from here, and so they mad and agitated at him now. So he done escalated even more issues for himself.
Right.
You know, it's like they got to get a hold of him, man. They got to get a hold of him.
All right, we're back to Brick Baby, but I think that Keyshawn Johnson is a real type mentor person that can not only help Ja Morant, but other people who are kind of going through the same thing. Because how many times have we seen this, FG, where a guy is a professional athlete, but he's having a difficult time transitioning into this new life and this new money, having to live by codes of conduct. He probably signed some morals clauses, and it's just kind of difficult. I remember when I first got to USC, it was culture shock for me, and I'm going from the hood to an institution. I ain't making millions of dollars. Can you imagine the culture shock from just being a high school baller, going to college, and now you in the NBA making millions of dollars? It's a culture shock for some of these folks, and there's no like education to make this transition.
No doubt. But at the same time, they try to groom you for this your whole life. There's also a parent that come in, because let me tell you, no matter how tough we was in the streets, homie, when we get to the pad, homie, your mama slap you upside your head, you wasn't gonna do shit about it. When she told you to pull up your pants, homie, and she told you to get that stupid look off your face, you got it off. So you understood, things outside of the hood life. You know what I mean? If you, even for those who were really hood, like I say, Keyshawn Johnson could be a great mentor. The thing about it is, and the problem with some of the shit is, how do these dudes respond to certain people? You got to understand, Alex, that the person that might respect me might not respect the next dude, or the person that might respect the next dude might not respect me. You know what I mean? So he has to get teamed up with the right person that he respect. He got to get teamed up with the right person that care enough that he has respect for, and maybe somebody in the NBA. You know what I mean? Because you have so many different people. You know what I mean? He may need to get hooked up with a Paul Pierce. You know what I mean? Somebody that was really from the land. Somebody that's really, gonna put it in his ear to say, "Oh, listen, bro, I've won titles." You know what I mean? I could say I've been where you been. You know what I mean? I've had, an extensive career in the NBA. And I came from the hood. Let me show you how to manage this. And let me show you how to, get this behind you. So it's going to take a special somebody, but he's going to have to realize somebody going to have to help him, and he's going to have to help himself at the end of the day. And so, he'll be all right, I think. I know he will.
Yeah, man. I guess we just got to be praying for him. For those that believe in the higher power, pray for Ja Morant. I guess a lot of people ain't going to have too much sympathy, because we talking about multimillionaires that don't know how to behave. And then some people are just have no patience for that. But I understand the transition. I understand how difficult it is for a young person to jump into this field. Hey, when we look back at LeBron James, man, we got to say, man, LeBron just always conducted himself like a professional. I mean, the guy was 18 years old and he was acting like a grown man, like he had been a man for years. So, a guy like LeBron might be a great example for Ja to tap in with.
I don't know. LeBron wasn't never he's from Cleveland, but he wasn't never from the hood. You know what I mean?
Akron. Akron got hoods.
When I no, but I've never seen him conduct himself in a way like he hung out or wanted to be a gangster, ever. You know what I mean? LeBron James was straight up clean cut kid that like you say was mature for his age when he was young. He might have followed all the right rules and did all the things right, and got, if anything was in the system, got it out before he got to high school. You know what I mean? So that you could tell a dude who, even just lived in certain parts or hung out in certain parts, because you could be a dude that live in the hood, never come outside or never participate or go straight to the park to play your basketball, and people never mess with you. Then you got those dudes that go to the park and play basketball, but then when you leave the park, you go hang out with the homies for a minute. You know what I mean? So you just start coming a part of them as well. You live in, I ain't gonna call it a double life, but you doing both. You know what I mean? You in the hood, you running a couple phase, you fighting, but you also up at the court shooting and you talk about an AI. When AI came around, they say AI was ghetto and hood and didn't know how to conduct itself in the NBA. You know what I mean? So we've seen this before. LeBron was just a different. Him and Kobe, they were bred different. They definitely knew how to conduct themselves. But these new dudes that's coming in the NBA, going back to, like I say, Allen Iverson, they come from different parts, and they swag was just different. Their attitudes was different. And yeah, when they got that money, it changed them. They didn't know how to act. They didn't know how to respond. But like I say, I believe Ja Morant, he's so young, man, that he'll definitely get it. 5 years from now, man, people will, all they'll do is be able to talk back on this, but he still probably be one of the best in the league.
I actually believe that LeBron James is probably more hood than Ja Morant. I just think that he knows how to mask it. He doesn't put it out front. I mean, almost all of Akron, the black community in Akron, that's as hood as it gets. And
Yeah, it's hood in Akron. I can't say that.
I just think he doesn't wear his hood on his sleeve, and I think he was schooled very early on. But I bet you he ran more fades in middle school and high school than Ja Morant did. But hey, I could be wrong, and I bet he lived in a more hood area than Ja Morant did in South Carolina.
I don't know, man. I can't agree with you on that one, but I can't say you lying. You know what I mean? I just don't know. I can't buy it, but I don't know neither one of them, man. You know, I don't look at neither one of them as tough guys. You know what I do look at Ja as, your actions. Your actions, bro. And change your actions. We know you're not cut from that cloth like that. Even if you do be in the hood with the homies hanging out, one thing about it, at 23, you didn't see LeBron doing the shit, or any other, a whole lot of NBA players, doing the shit that he's doing. But like you say, you also didn't have social media so long ago that to where you were able to see that. That don't mean they didn't do it. It just mean they didn't get caught, or on social media doing it. So that could be the big difference.
But I do agree with you with Kobe Bryant. He definitely lived a sheltered life and really had no access to no hood activities at all. Period. All right, so let's move on to a topic that we've talked about many times before. We had always been waiting for this guy's trial to start, and for whatever reason, it was always delayed. But now they're saying that jury selection in the YNW Melly case. Now, this is a double homicide that we've talked about on Streets and Scholars many times. Go tap in with one of our previous episodes. We're on Spotify, we're on iHeart, we're on Google, we're on Apple. So you can go back and listen to any of our previous episodes where we talked about YNW Melly. But it looks like he's going to be the trial. The trial technically has already started because it's jury selection, but it sounds as if witnesses will be starting to testify in early June, according to XXL Magazine FG. And this is a trial that we've been waiting for a minute now.
Yeah, no doubt. We've been waiting on this a long time. And for the people not familiar, you talking about YNW Melly, them guys out of Florida, him and his co-defendant Bortland, they are accused of killing their homies, Juvie and Sack Chaser. So we going to see how this turn out, man. And originally, if people not aware of it, a shooting occurred. YNW Melly and them drove him to the hospital, said that somebody did a drive-by shooting on him, basically but after police did their forensics and all that, they discovered that this wasn't a drive-by, when arrested Melly, and ended up catching up with Bortland as well, and so these dudes is finna go to trial, man. It's been a long time. What I did hear that YNW Melly's ex-girlfriend is to give a deposition. Man, that could be damaging. That could be helpful, but that can also be damaging, Alex.
Yeah, man, because we don't really have any idea of what she's gonna say. There's actually a good clip here online that breaks down a little bit of what we should expect in this trial. Let me just play a couple minutes of it, and I'll get your reaction after that. This is a clip by a platform called Rizzle, and they're breaking down the whole YNW Melly case.
Unveil a twisted plot involving secret text messages from cooperative record labels and mysterious new evidence. As the trial unfolds, authorities suspect YNW Melly's involvement in the tragic passing of YNW Sack Chaser and YNW Juvie. You ready for?
Let me pause it right there. That YNW Sack Chaser, I said this before on the show, he came to LA with YNW Melly one day, and I was on the east side messing with the four trays at an event they had, and YNW Melly and Sack Chaser were there together. I'm shooting video of these dudes. I have no idea who they are. I didn't know he was a well-known rapper from Florida.
Yeah. So
I actually got footage of the guy he allegedly killed. That would be Sack Chaser. All right, let me continue it right here.
For some jaw-dropping details of this high-profile case that's sending shockwaves through the music industry. YNW Melly is a Florida-based rapper who creates music based on his turbulent life experiences. His first breakthrough came with the release of his debut mixtape, IMU, in 2018. Growing up in the dangerous streets of Gifford, Florida, Melly started making and uploading music on SoundCloud at a young age, blending melodically sung vocals with raw raps about various challenging aspects of his life, including violence, crime, sex, and money. He eventually was incarcerated for weapons charges related to a shooting he was involved in at the age of 16. After being released from jail, Melly continued to produce music, releasing several singles and projects, including a 2017 EP called Collect Call featuring Lil B and John Wicks. He also collaborated with other artists, including Supreme Patty and Kanye West. Released a non-album single called 223s in 2019. Despite his musical success, Melly faced significant legal issues during this time, including 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of his friends YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser. He was incarcerated and awaiting trial when his first studio album, Melly vs. Melvin, was released in 2019. The single Thugged Out, featuring Kodak Black, was released in 2021, followed shortly by his second studio album, Just a Matter of Slime, which he produced while in jail. And as most of y'all know, Melly is still behind bars. His trial picked up pace, though, as we've seen his appearance in court just a few days ago. But what did Melly do, and is he really responsible for the deaths of his friend Chaser and Juvie? Well, here's what we know so far. The Miramar Police Department has accused Melly of being responsible for the shooting deaths of Anthony Williams, 21.
All right, that's just a brief little overview of YNW Melly. I guess this guy has been staying busy, still producing music while he's in the county jail there in Florida.
Yeah, I saw that. You know what I mean? So this trial finally underway. So they doing jury selection right now?
Jury selection. They're expecting the trial to start in the first week. Well, testimony to start in the first week of June. And I don't know what to think about this case. I'm leaning towards it's a weak case. But I guess when you mentioned that they might have this testimony from this female, that might be some information that they're going to use to try to bolster their case. But we'll just have to tap in once the testimony starts.
Oh, no doubt. You know, and it's finna start, you know, depending on how long it take them to do jury. Sometimes it could take a while, sometimes it's not, you know, but I'm I'm waiting to see the evidence that they have. So, you know what I mean? I'm gonna stay tapped in with that one. We've been following that one for a long time.
Hey, can you believe they're still in jury selection on the YSL case in Atlanta? And they've been doing this jury selection for what, 3 or 4 months? They haven't even started
crazy,
testimony. Man. No witnesses have testified, nothing. It's just jury selection.
Yeah, that's wild. But you know what I mean? It's you know, unfortunately that, you know, it's fortunate that the attorneys is taking the due diligence to, you know, try to make sure they get the right jury selection. You know, as a you know, guy sitting in jail trying to pick his jury, you know, he want to make sure he gets somebody that, you know, kind of understands him, where he from, and things of that nature. And the prosecutor definitely don't want you to have nobody in there from where you from or understand your situation. So, you know, it's always going to be a battle. It's starting to be a battle with the jury selections now.
And I think it's because there's so many defendants and you get multiple juries. Sometimes I've worked on cases where there's 2 defendants and there's 2 juries. So each defendant has their own jury. I don't know how many juries they're selecting for this YSL case, but I remember when we was reading the indictment, man, there had to be at least, 15, 20 people arrested with Young Thug. So if each one gets their own jury, that's one of the reasons why it's taking so long.
Yeah. But, you know, hey, you know, it's coming. It's definitely coming. You know what I mean? So they're going to have their day in court. You know, we're going to see the evidence that's presented. You know, we're going to see if the attorneys, the defense attorneys do what they supposed to do, man. And, you know, see if these dudes going to come home or see if they're going to get knocked upside their head.
All right, man. Hey, let's talk about this killing of a shoplifter, man. Banko Brown. A lot of people have already seen the video of this fight between the security guard and the shoplifter. They basically tussling on the ground. And I thought he was going to choke him out for a minute. It looked like he was choking him out, if I got that correct. And then he releases him. Then they get more words. He pulls his gun out and he shoots him at the front door of this Walgreens. FG, what did you think about that?
Man, I wasn't feeling it. You know what I mean? You know, dude came in there, whether he stole some or not, you know what I mean? I think the security was, you know, I think he was doing too much. You know what I mean? yeah, it's your job to stop people from stealing, you know, but what he was trying to steal some $20 worth of shit or something, you know, and okay, the choke out was cool, but at the end of the day, I wasn't feeling the shoot.
Wow. A lot of people, you know what? I think people are split on this. Some people are tired of the shoplifting. They're tired of, because in most cities, you can just walk into any store, grab whatever you want, and just walk right out, and they're not going to do anything to you. We've seen these videos where customers in the store are trying to stop some of the shoplifters because the store's not doing nothing about it.
Right.
So I know I talked to one of my boys who actually works in the store, and his response was, good for him. I'm tired of these shoplifters. He got everything he deserved. Is that too extreme?
Way too extreme, you know. At the end of the day, Alex, you talking about a life, man. You talking about shooting somebody, you talking about putting a bullet in somebody, you talking about taking somebody's life over $20, $30, $50, $500. You know, it's a shame that this is what's going on, but at the same time, you know, that's what they had the police for. That's what they got a court of law for. That's what they had things of that nature for. I don't even think the police is even showing up when you call them and say somebody stole a 6-pack of beer or, you know, some paper towels or some shit like that. I don't even think the police come anymore. So I understand the business, but at the same time, if you look at it, Alex, you know, this dude flinched at him and dude pulled out his gun. When he pulled out his gun, the dude started backing up and he still shot him. I don't see how they justifying that. You know, maybe people saw something different than what I saw, but at the same time, from the clip that I saw, you know, his life wasn't in imminent danger. You know, he wasn't in no kind of danger for him to have to shoot the dude.
Okay, well, I'm going to play a clip real quick, but what I want to briefly ask you is that whenever you're involved in any criminal activity, even as minor as writing graffiti on the wall, shoplifting, you have to understand that the potential of conflict is always going to be there. If I decide to pull out this spray can and write on this wall, there's a chance that the owner of this property is going to come out around the corner and air me out. If I decide I'm going to go steal whatever I'm going to steal out of Walgreens, I got to understand there's a chance that I'm going to get my ass beat and possibly killed. So I'm not shocked, and I'm not really as critical of the security guard's actions as you might be. So what do you say about when you're involved in criminal activity, you got to always expect the worst?
Depending on what kind of criminal activity it is. If I go to steal something out of Walgreens or something, I don't expect to get killed. I expect to go to jail or get beat up by the security. Death is the last thing on my mind. So you got to understand, Alex, that depending on the crime, I'm already thinking about the consequences. And getting killed over some, I don't know what dude was actually stealing, but, you know, some paper towels or whatever it was, you know, out of a Walgreens. There's nothing in Walgreens that I should be killed off of. I should be, you know, detained by the security guard, even beat up by the security guard, held down till the police come, anything of that nature. But to be killed because I stole something, no, that ain't even on my mind. So yeah, now writing graffiti on some people's business, I would be more susceptible in my mind to say somebody might come out shooting, but not stealing nothing from a Walgreens, you know, not stealing nothing from a Walmart, not stealing something from a department store like this. Losing my life would be the last thing on my mind.
Well, I used to work at a supermarket here in LA when I was a teenager. I was actually underage. I lied to get the job.
No doubt.
When I was bagging groceries, and I remember we had 3 security guards in the store. One was armed, and the other 2 were undercover. But the undercovers would only come like twice a week, and they would go up in the ceiling and look through mirrors to find shoplifters. And every once in a while, I would see them apprehend the shoplifter at the front door. But sometimes it would get crazy. And one time the undercovers weren't there, and the armed security guard was by himself. And every once in a while, the security guard would be like, "Yo, Alex, I need help." So I run over there and I help him. I'm like 14 years old doing this job. And one time I wasn't working. I was on my off day, and this other dude that was bagging, he would help the security guard. Yo, this guy was stealing a 6-pack of beer, and he got to squabbing with the security guard. The other bagger came to go help. the guy that was stealing the beer grabbed the billy club and started whipping everybody's ass. So the security guard just pulled his gun out and killed the dude right there in the front of the store. And that was a huge thing that, we killed a guy over a 6-pack of beer. But I would say that when you come in the store, you got to expect that, man. If you're going to try to steal something and then try to fight with the security, I believe that's a recipe for disaster. And you got to expect that I could possibly get killed if I'm going to fight the security.
Well, in that situation where you say he took his billy club and started hitting him with it, yeah, that's a little something different. But for a man not to be armed, no, I don't see it in no way, none whatsoever, man. I don't see it none whatsoever. Shoot a dude because you can't either detain him as a security guard or, things of that nature, man. I just, like you say, man, play the clip and let people judge for themselves. But at the same time, when dude pulled that gun out, he was a no threat, no harm, no none of that at the time. Now, had he shot him while they was wrestling or kind of squabbling or something like that, that's different. Dude wasn't even on him when he shot him.
All right, this incident happened up in San Francisco. The victim's name is Banko Brown, and the security guard, his name is Michael Earlwayne Anthony. Here goes the clip. All right, I want to stop it right there, FG, because this is the part where I think this is where you're going to ask for trouble every single time. Now, the guy Banko Brown was trying to walk out the door, but the security said, no, you can't. You just stole that. You can't leave here. Now, at this point, you're supposed to say, all right, you got me. My bad here, and end it. But this dude didn't want to end it. He wanted to keep the stuff and then create a physical confrontation with the dude. At that point, I think, anything's a go now.
I don't know. Outside, look, you friends with Banko Brown or something, homie? Because the way I saw it, the security guard took off on him, homie. You know what I mean? If you look at it, how you think the dude got over there on the floor on the ground? Security guard fired on him twice. It's your job to stop somebody from going out. He fired on him, knocked him on the ground. Back it up just a second and watch that security guard. Look right here. Soon as they play it, the security guard stopped him.
Try to stop him twice, right?
Look. Then he took off on him. You know what I mean? Boom. So security knocked the bags out of his hand. He didn't even have bags in his hands no more. He dropped the bags and the security socked him up a little bit and Banko Brown fell on the ground, bro. That's a damn near assault on the security guard, but okay, we gonna say he doing the job. You know what I mean? What's next?
All right, but you must have meant to say, am I friends with Michael?
I meant to say, the security guard.
Nah, just for the record, I don't know none of these cats from the Bay Area. All right, I'm gonna continue playing it. All right, you saw that flinch, right?
See that flinch, but see how he flinched, but when dude actually pulled his gun out, dude started to retreat. You know what I mean? And
okay,
that's some bullshit to me.
But he turned. Okay, he pulls his gun out. He's got it pointed down. But this guy is still antagonizing him. Banko Brown
he don't have a weapon though. But he don't have a weapon. Now that's all he got is his fist.
Yeah, but he doesn't know that, and I think that's what he told the San Francisco PD. He's like, I thought this guy had a knife, or I thought this guy had some sort of weapon, because if he pulled his gun out right there, and he just flinched, what do you think he said at that moment when he just flinched on the security guard?
Man, he probably said, "Shoot me, then, fool." He could have said anything, you know. But at the same time, me, I'm just saying, people gonna feel how they feel. I'm gonna say straight up that I don't feel like he should have shot the dude.
All right,
He didn't see a weapon at all. No matter what you think he had, he didn't see nothing.
Correct. He didn't see it. All right, let me continue playing it.
Words from a police interview the night of the shooting about the moments leading up to that single shot.
The only reason why I did that is because I felt like I was in danger. And if I would have let that person go, I would have been harmed. So once I let that person go, that's when I drew my weapon. I didn't point it straight at him, but I had it like downward. So at the ground, like they trained us.
Ultimately, police did not find a knife at the scene or on Brown's person, but the DA says at the time of the altercation, there was no way for Anthony to know that.
We have the benefit of hindsight. Right now, we understand that Banko Brown did not have a knife, did not have a weapon. But at that moment in time, it's about what the security guard perceived or believed. And was that reasonable?
Since the shooting, San Francisco's supervisors have called on DA Jenkins to release the video. And today, Supervisor Shaman Walton released a statement reading in part, quote, DA Jenkins' decision to not charge gives every armed security guard in San Francisco a license to have an open season to shoot and kill Black and transgender people for alleged shoplifting.
All right, so let me pause. All right, so let me pause it right there. I didn't know originally that this was a transgender person that was transitioning from female to male. So I guess this is a female in essence, right? That he was fighting with.
Okay, because I was damn sure finna say, well, what do transgender people got to do with it? Yeah, so no, I didn't know it either. But to me, it don't matter. It just I mean, it's kind of what dude's saying. Now security gonna feel like, you know, the open season on, they can just bust on people and get away with it with, you know, because somebody's stealing something. You know what I mean? I just don't think it was enough threat to shoot the dude. That's all, or the person. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying.
Okay, so if you think that Michael Anthony overreacted, then you believe that there's some wiggle room here for him to be charged with something.
No doubt. You was never how can I put it? His life was never in danger. You know what I mean? In order for you to be how it's written in the books is, in order for you to shoot somebody, you got to prove that your life is in danger. That's including in my own home, Alex. We in California, you know, in case people don't know. Somebody break into my home. I catch them in my kitchen. They start to run. I shoot them in the back. I'm going to jail. I can only shoot them if they're attacking me. You know, this don't apply in the street. It apply in my own home, but it don't apply in the street. Dude lunged at him, did a little flinch, you know, after you done beat his ass. You know what I mean? You wasn't worried about him. You see how you manhandled him the first time, so you wasn't worried about him beating you up, you know, at all. You know, you say you might have thought he had some or things of that nature, but at the same time, you never saw nothing. So I believe they may double back and, you know, I believe they may double back and refile. You know, I'm not hoping they do or nothing like that. I'm just saying it's room in there for them to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you could always refile on these. Let me play the rest of the clip.
He's calling for the state attorney general to review this case. DA Jenkins says she mourns the loss of life alongside those who have protested over Brown's death.
I share in their outcry. I share in the sadness of this tragedy. But I have to base my decisions on the law and not on emotion or on what's maybe politically advantageous for me.
The case has led to protests and anger from the family and supporters of Banko Brown. The district attorney says the case remains open since it is a homicide investigation, and if evidence is uncovered that changes the narrative, her office could file charges in this case at some later date. In San Francisco.
There you go, FG. He just said what you just said, that there's always room to charge at some later point in time when it comes to a homicide. So, but look, this is what I want to say. If this guy was threatening the security guard saying, I will beat your ass, or I will shoot you, or I will stab you, which is what I believe he told the police he said. We don't have audio of it. Maybe they got audio. Then I think he had every right to say that I had a reasonable amount of fear, and I think he had every right to legally shoot this guy if he made any threat to him at that door.
I mean, you got a certain point, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's basically like they picking and choosing what they, well, I mean, we've seen people get shot for a lot more and get charged. You know what I mean? We've seen people attack people, on different, various occasions and still get charged for shooting them, So, you up in San Francisco, I believe that now that you're saying that this was a transgender person, I believe that, we finna see the, transgender community at work. That's what I'm finna look at from here on out. Do they change it based on the pressure that the transgender community put on the district attorneys or put on the city to charge this dude? You know what I mean? I mean, at worst, it's going to be a manslaughter. You know what I mean? At worst, and the lesser charged manslaughter at worst as well. So even if this dude was convicted, I mean, he looking at 2-3 years at tops to me. But I want to see if the transgender community can change the minds of the city of San Francisco to charge this dude.
Well, Black Lives Matter is already on this. The Los Angeles chapter for Black Lives Matter is all over this. One of my former colleagues, who's the head of the LA Black Lives Matter, Melina Abdullah, she believes that this guy should be charged. And most of the time I agree with Melina. I went to school with Melina, but on this one, I do not believe that Michael Anthony should be charged. I know it sounds a little insensitive because Banko Brown lost his life. Is it his life or her life? His life, I guess, is what it is now. He lost his life. But hey, when you shoplifting and then you gonna try to squabble up with an armed security guard, I gotta give bro a pass. And let me also point out the security guard is also black. Both these people are black. So this can't this can't be looked at as a black issue. Imagine if the security guard was white. Oh man, this town would be going crazy right now.
Well, no, let me reiterate though, Alex. For me, it's not about him being charged, the security guard. It's about if he should have shot him or not. I'm not speaking on the charges per se. I'm never going to say a man should be charged or not, things of that nature, especially if he was deemed to be innocent during the crime. You know what I mean? So let me clear that up. If if anybody thought that, it's not about me saying he should be charged or not. I'm saying he shouldn't have shot him. That's where I'm standing at. He shouldn't have shot him. Whether he be charged or not, he be charged or not. But at the same time, he shouldn't have shot him. Period, bro. You know what I mean?
But that means in your eyes, he committed a crime then.
True, but we still talking about, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I think he should go. They should make sure they charge him. I'm not saying that. You know what I mean? I beat cases before and I didn't want to be charged my damn self. But I'm saying, from a black man shooting another black man is what I'm saying. He shouldn't have shot him, and I felt he was wrong in shooting him. So if wrong came with charges, that's something different. But I feel like, man, he just gunned down his own people. You know what I mean? Over something you protecting the white man shit for. See, I don't even want to get into that part. I was trying to hold that part off. You gonna shoot a brother, homie, over something you getting paid what, $20 an hour, bro? I don't give a fuck if you getting paid $30 an hour. You know what I mean? And you gonna shoot your people, protecting these other people's shit. Come on, homie, it's deeper than that. When I say he shouldn't have shot him, you know what I mean? So that's what it is. But I'm going to see if these people come and try to make them change the charges. You know what I mean? So,
well, I agree with you in terms of this. This is Walgreens. This is a corporation. Definitely, bystanders should never intervene in trying to stop a shoplifter. We've been seeing that lately, where customers are actually trying to stop shoplifters. But this was his job, though. This was Michael Anthony's job, and we all know. I know dudes who do security, FG. I know so many dudes that do security because it's sometimes like the easiest job to get. And sometimes they put pressure on you to do this job. We're getting hit with insurance costs. Our insurance company is pissed off that we got so much loss. I mean, you walk into the supermarket, all the alcohol is locked up. You can't even walk in the market and get a bottle of Hennessy because people like Banko Brown is constantly in there stealing the bottles. You can't even go into Ralph's and go down the hygiene aisle at nighttime. You got to go to the manager and say, hey, can you get me some deodorant and toothpaste down this aisle? Because people are constantly stealing it. So I understand that bro had to do his job, and I'm sure he had pressure from his boss. Do not let shoplifters.
Do not let.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, we got Milk in the comments, man. Milk 74 talking about it. He spit on it. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's true, but he's saying, man, if he spit on you, what would you do, man? So one thing about spitting, man, I don't play that spitting shit. And I probably wouldn't have shot him, but I definitely probably would have busted him in his head with that pistol, you know. So I probably would have some charges against me. But that spitting shit, Alice, if that's what he did, I could believe that's what could have triggered somebody to do something like that. Because man, when he did that flinch, remember he did the flinch? If he spit on him then, that could have even triggered more, man, and made him spit. But I don't know how true that is, you know.
And I guarantee you, when he did that flinch, he called him a bitch.
Hey, no doubt. No doubt. But unfortunately though, man, he didn't have a weapon. You know what I mean? Just when you go on what they say, you know, I can do in my own home. You know, but you do have black on black violence, man. And then, you know, like I say, this should be treated as such. You know, transgender community shouldn't even get involved. It should be just treated as how it happened. You know, 2 black men got into it and one was killed, unfortunately. But because a person was transgender, I don't think that the extra mile should be taken because of that. Just because, you know, because of that, you know.
Okay, so what I'm getting from you is you think that Mr. Anthony may have just shot and killed him out of emotion, not truly out of threat.
Well, the verbal threat, but not as, I mean, you know, Alex, you saw what I saw. He had one hand holding the bag, he had his other hand up, you know. He didn't have a weapon. You know, typically in California, I know California law pretty good. You know, you really have to be have a real form of threat. You know, even a person standing 10 feet away from you with a knife don't consider it as a threat. They consider it's a person 10 feet away from you with a knife in your hand. Until they lunge your way, until they start walking your way, then, you know, typically, you know, you're able to shoot them and get away with it. You know, like I say, I'm not mad if this dude walk away with no charges at all. I'm just saying I don't think he should shot the other black man per se or black person per se under these circumstances at all.
Well, look, Black Lives Matters all over this. Black Lives Matter actually helped Jackie Lacey not get elected. I saw them do that every day that they was at her office protesting. And who knows, maybe they might have so much impact. I don't know the Black Lives Matter up in the Bay Area, but I'm assuming they got a chapter up there. And because this person was transgendered, that also adds another layer to it. You saw what the guy said. Now this gives people think they can just kill transgender people, even though this probably had nothing to do with the fact that this person was transgender, but they're going to add that in there as another element. So who knows? Maybe this guy might get charged. But I'm hoping he don't. I'm hoping that he gets to continue his job. And I can tell you this. Ain't nobody gonna be shoplifting at that Walgreens again.
Hell no. They're gonna be like, hey, man, don't try, dude, over there at the Walgreens over there on that street. You right, you know what I mean? But at the same time, man, you know, like I say, you know, more black on black violence, you know, like I say, protecting the white man shit. So, you know, unfortunately, that's how it went. That's the part I hate to see it go down like that.
Yeah, a lot of people like to put down security guards because I guess it's like you couldn't make the cut of any like law enforcement. But I know a lot of security guards that they have no desire to be cops. They just want to be guards. They just want to work at the club. They want to be a bouncer. They, you know, they get their guard card and they make their money and do their job.
No doubt. You know what I mean? Some people like that don't even have a want to be on the police force, but you know, at the same time, you know, security guard job is just a job. It's a pretty usually a pretty typically easy job, you know. So I know why people get them. You know, it's not so hard to do, you know. But at the same time, you do run into situations where you got to respond.
And I don't really think security guards be itching to bust a gun. Most of the time when I see the security guard at any place, they looking in their phone. They're in their phone. They're not even paying attention to what's going on half the time I see these security guards.
No doubt, but you do got some of them out there that want to be, you know, more than what they are. You know, you do have those type Alex, you know, they want to be super cops, you know, and you a security guard, you know, going above and beyond and shit like that. You know, so you know, it's what it is, you know.
Hey, we talked about this story. Was it last week? The boy that wore the shirt that there's only two genders. It was either last week
that
or
was
the
a
week
couple
before.
weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. The 12-year-old boy got in trouble at school. I believe that was up in Massachusetts for wearing a shirt that says there's only two genders. I thought that was crazy that they would actually tell that 12-year-old kid you can't wear the shirt because it's offensive. But I'm of the school that there are only two genders, and that ain't never going to change for me for the rest of my life.
No, it's two genders, but I mean, I do believe that you could be trans, but you're still not more than those two genders. You're not a separate gender. You just a mix or, in between or one of the other genders. You know what I mean? It's not like it's three. Trans don't make it three. Trans, it's still only two in my eyes. So, you know what I mean? I feel you on that, what you're saying.
Okay. Too much fake Negro outrage on these type of incidents.
Hey, people get tired though, man. Alex, sometimes people get tired. They get fed up. You don't know what the security guard had to deal with early in the morning. He might have had to stop 2 or 3 shoplifters early in the day. Now he get into a physical altercation, a scuffle with this dude. And, so sometimes, emotion can take over, man. And I'm not saying that, I haven't seen it happen or it had never happened to me. I'm just saying, unfortunately, now with all these video footages and you at work and, everything you do now is under scrutiny and under video. So, it's hard, man, to keep those type of emotions in check under certain situations on these jobs.
Yeah, man. I think shoplifting, just like homelessness, has just become this crazy problem. Shoplifting is now almost a problem that every single store has to deal with. And I feel like being inconvenienced when I go to a store. I was in a Walmart the other day and I had to wait 10 minutes for somebody to get me some alcohol out the alcohol aisle. I just want to walk into the store, grab what I want to get and check out. But because of the level of shoplifting, all of the expensive items are all locked away and you got to wait. You got to wait for someone to come and they got to get the key and, oh, I don't know who got the key and they can't find the key. And by the time you check out, you was in there for 15, 20 minutes for something that should have just took 5 minutes. So I understand the people who are frustrated with shoplifting and, rest in peace to Banko Brown, his family. I pray for you guys and, but at the same time, I don't want to see bro get in trouble for doing his job. I know his job isn't to his job isn't to kill shoplifters, but they give him a gun. What's the gun? What's the gun for, FG?
No, I mean, you got a point, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like I say, man, it was an unfortunate incident. We don't know all the emotions that this security guard went through. We don't know everything that was said in between them. You know what I mean? We don't know if he really thought dude had something in the bag or, if he really felt threatened. He really could have felt threatened. Everybody don't look at things to the aspect that we do, Alex. Everybody don't pay attention to the things that we paying attention to. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, man, like I said, I'm not, putting dude at blame. I'm just saying I never saw a knife, I never saw a weapon, and I never saw him threatened in order for him to shoot a person. But I can't say what he felt. So, hey, like I say, rest in peace to the dude, man. And that's what it was.
All right, man. Let everybody know where they could catch up with you. Where can they tap in with you at?
Man, you can tap in with me at FGeneral1 on Instagram. I got some stuff in the works. I'm still over there at FG Unleashed on YouTube. I got some good shit coming up, man. So y'all pay attention, but I'm gonna definitely let y'all know. So with you, Alex.
Man, I just dropped a couple of clips. I just dropped the ODM Slim 5'7" neighborhood crib. We go through the whole history of how it went from 5'7" hustlers to 5'7" neighborhood crib through some of his OGs. I also just recently dropped the Deuce M's from Fruittown Brim. There's actually a clip where Deuce M's tells a Keyshawn Johnson story. He tells a story.
I just was watching. He also was telling me some other stuff, man. I didn't know the Nino Brim grandfather was original from over there, man. So,
Oh, yeah.
That's Yeah, that's crazy, man. He was telling me about how far he went back. I was listening to how far he went back in the low ride and shit. But yeah, he named a few dudes, homie, that I personally know from over there, man. Some of the history that I didn't know that's how it was. So good looking out on that.
Yeah, tap in with those 2 clips. And we're on all podcast platforms. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeart, and all the other ones. And on that note, we're going to check out. And thanks for tapping in. with another fire episode of Streets and Scholars.